I used to go fishing with my stepdad off of the pier right there on the Coronado Bay. Some of you might have been there. It's a really pretty place. And as a kid, we'd go fishing there. We'd fish off of that pier. And what we almost always caught there off of the pier were stingrays. So you couldn't eat them, but it was fun to catch them as a kid. And we've gone a couple times in the last few years with our children. And that's typically what we catch to this day, is we'll catch stingray there off of the pier in Coronado. And I remember one time my stepdad reeled in a stingray, as we had done so many times, and he brought it over onto the pier, and he wasn't being careful, and he got stung on the hand. And, he was very upset about that. He threw the stingray back in. But afterwards, every single time we caught a stingray, and there were many times that we caught stingrays, he would take his pliers and he would break off the stinger of the stingray. It wasn't really a nice thing to do for the stingrays, because if you take its stinger away, it's powerless to defend itself. There's nothing that it can do to protect itself. But he did it anyway, hoping to protect other fishermen who would be reeling in these stingrays from getting stung. One day, the Bible teaches that God is going to take away, break off the stingers or the horns of the wicked. David the psalmist said, do not boast, and to the wicked do not lift up your horn. Do not lift up your horn on high or speak with a haughty neck. All the horns of the wicked will be cut off, and the horns of the righteous will be lifted up. David again, in 2 Samuel 22, verses 2 and 3, he said this, the Lord is my rock and my fortress, my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield, and the horn of my salvation. Kids, have you guys been to the San Diego Zoo? Right, we're so close to the zoo. It's a wonderful place to go. And right now at the zoo here in San Diego, there's an animal called the oryx. It's a beautiful animal, and there's actually several of them there at the zoo. And one of the cool things about the oryx is it was around in Jesus' day. They roamed wild in that part of the world. And the oryx was like this mighty ox, and it had these two really big, long horns with which it would defend itself. They would grow anywhere between 2.5 and 4 feet long, maybe 5 feet long. And they're known in the wild the oryx have been known in the wild to be able to put a lion down, to deal a fatal blow to lions and other predators with their big, long horns. And if you were a kid walking around in Jesus' day, right, you might see an oryx in the wilderness there, but you wouldn't want to get too close. Because if it charged you with its long, mighty horns, you'd be in big trouble. And Zechariah says, Jesus is the mighty horn of God's salvation. It's like he's depicting Jesus for us as this Savior of immense strength. He scatters the enemies of God like an oryx scatters a pride of lions. That's what Zechariah is talking about here. And he even says in verse 71 that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us.